corpse paint came about.
For me, it's just like an electric jolt.
The real ugly side of humanity, and their music sounds like it.
I always wanted to be a band that was approachable to people, that was just regular ass people. Yo, what's up? So before I start this episode, I want to bring up two really good friends of mine that I've met along the way. They've been the backbone and really the biggest supporters of this podcast since day one. Everything visually you see with this podcast has been done by Wither Designs and Benny Bones Art, and it could be your band next. Check them out on social media, get yourself something unique and original, and yeah, let's do this. I want to jog your memory back to Psycho Las Vegas. I was there. I took a plane ride there, and it was super fun. And I just want to, what did you enjoy the most about that whole experience?
It was really fun. It's just they put together the fest really well. Obviously they've been doing it for a while, but like the last time I played, when Power Trip played, I think it was in 2019, and I think we just flew in and played. I think we were only there for like 24 hours because I don't really remember getting to enjoy everything about the fest as much. But this time was really cool. A lot of our friends' bands were there. So it was just, basically flying to Las Vegas for the weekend to party and hang out with your friends and see bands. So it was perfect. It was really fun. So we had a really good time. And then for that to be our second show, it was great. It was worked out really well because people had a little bit of time to get acquainted with the music, and there was a good energy, excitement about the show, I feel like. And it was great. It was a really fun time for all of us. So I'm really glad they decided to bring us out there. It's really cool.
Did you happen to see Midnight?
I did not.
So there was like a few sets. Were you there like multiple days or just the day that you played?
I got there on Saturday at like lunchtime, and we played on Sunday. So I was there Saturday to Monday. I think I don't know if I was there when they played, and if I was, I think didn't they play outside like by the pool?
Yeah, well, yeah. I want to tell you my experience real quick. So I've never been to Vegas, right? And like I went there not expecting, as something as crazy as what it was. And like the first day, there was like people getting thrown into the pool, like WWE, like over the shoulder stuff. Just not like people were like running from the stage to jump off right into the pool, like just crazy stuff, like mosh pits in the pool. That doesn't happen around here, man.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Would you say that like that spot like has something going on, like a little bit weirder than most?
You're talking about the pool?
Yeah.
Well, we played in a pool when we played Psycho back in 2019. Like I was talking about, we played the pool stage. This was at the Mandalay Bay, so it was a different situation because I guess it was kind of similar. But I guess this one, if you're right up against a stage, you weren't in the pool. Like the pool was kind of behind you. So the one that we played was literally like the stage is really tall and we're looking down over the whole pool. So everybody that's watching was in the pool. Yeah. Which I guess was cool. I mean, yeah, that's just, it works for that fest because everyone's just trying to hang out in the pool and drink and get wild. So
it was so funny because like the weather out there.
Yeah,
the weather out there, it makes you have to be in the pool. Like it was just very warm. But yeah, I wanted to bring up Devil Master too. I know Chris is in that. I didn't really know much about that band until like, I saw them and I was like, holy shit, like this band is awesome. And then on top of that, like Tribulation was after. I don't know if you're a fan of them.
Yeah, I know about Tribulation. I haven't seen them in a long time, but I know who they are.
It's just like a really cool, like gothy metal band. Like I love it.
They're awesome.
Are you a fan of like Devil Master and what he does? I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm not a huge black metal guy, but I like what they do, and I like the. I'm not exactly sure the angle they take, obviously, but I enjoy what I've heard. They're awesome. We got to tour with them back in I guess it was 2019 when we did that tour with High on Fire. They were one of the openers, so uh, those guys are awesome.
I think the cool thing is like nowadays, like Power Trip, everybody's like kind of doing, Power Trip's still a band, but just like everybody's got like these side projects, and it's cool just kind of being like, yo, what's Blake up to? What's you know, Chris up to? What
Yeah.
it's I feel like once you work on a project for so long, I don't know. You brought up the fact that it was like a fresh palette for you, man. Like, I mean, how did that feel?
Yeah, it felt good. I just wanted to keep being creative, keep writing, and I don't know. I guess it took a while to. I wasn't thinking about it for a really long time. But I think one day it was just a light bulb. It was kind of like, oh, I can write stuff like I always write, but there's a little bit of a different angle to take to where it's not. I'm not repeating myself necessarily, but it still sounds like me, and I think that was cool. That happened organically. Um, but yeah, it felt good to be able to write. And I mean, I've always been able to write with different people, and I feel like have pretty good results. And this wasn't any different. I'm happy with how it turned out. I've always enjoyed working with different people. Whether that was with Jason and Eternal Champion or anything else. I've always felt like the way I write lends itself pretty easily to collaborating with other people because uh, generally the way I do things is it's pretty structured, and there's kind of a big idea that I lay out with the way I write and the way I arrange stuff. It's not super hard for people to uh, that I'm working with to figure out what to do, and I usually have a pretty good idea what I want to, and I'm
Mhm.
like for example, like in Eternal Champion, I wasn't as involved in that. Obviously, I was kind of, I had the riffs and maybe an order and stuff, and Jason's already he writes in the similar way that I do, so he was able to, you know, go with that really well and knock it out of the park. But with Fugitive, I definitely had more of a idea of exactly what I wanted, and I was able to work with Seth, and he was totally on board with the way I like to write, and the same thing with all the power trip stuff. I was always uh, present in the studio the whole time and very involved, and um, just kind of making sure that everything went the way that I had it in my head, and collaborating with Riley and stuff like that. But generally, the way I arrange the songs is kind of the way they ended up going.
Yeah, I mean, and to top it off, now you got, like I'm a fan of Creeping Death. Like,
Yeah.
what gravitated you towards like Lincoln being a part of it? Like, I mean, he's a fucking amazing drummer. But like, maybe like his personality. Do you think that he works good with the project that you're trying to, start up?
Yeah. Well, for one, he lives in my area, which is awesome. Um, Obviously, we toured with Creeping Death. I knew about Creeping Death, so I knew he was a good drummer, and um, he's a little bit younger. I like that because he has a good energy. I think everybody loves him. He's just I always say he's a good boy. He's he's like a nice young lad. So no, he's just he's got a good energy. He's always down to jam and gets excited about stuff. I mean, from where I come from, and with Power Trip, it was more of like I was kind of the younger brother forever. I still am, but
Yeah.
it's like the guys they love what I bring to the table, and they love playing and all that stuff. But there's a little bit of a different I don't know what you'd call it, enthusiasm for when I'm writing. It's kind of like they expect me to bring good shit to the table and all that. It's like with Fugitive, I guess it's like a little more people that I don't always work with, maybe that haven't been involved in a band, maybe not Lincoln or whatever, but haven't been in a band that's kind of had a little bit more visibility. So there's more excitement, I think, when I bring ideas to the table. Holy shit, this is gonna be fun, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's a little more like with my other guys, it's like they expect it. It's like, yeah, of course it's gonna be good. I'm like their little brother. You know how older brothers are with little brothers.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I've got an
yeah,
older brother.
but with Fugitive, it's kind of just like it came out of nowhere. I think putting this together, and they all just were like, "Fuck yeah, this is awesome. Let's do it. This is exciting." So I like the energy of this band because it's just everyone's having fun and excited, and just there's a general air of respect and appreciation that's cool, and I love that. So it's been cool, and I think finding Lincoln was great because yeah, he's a great drummer. He's close. He's younger. He's got this energy that makes you know kind of makes it feel like I'm not getting older. I'm not that old yet,
That's
but I
awesome.
feel like I'm
Yeah.
generally people are just getting younger. So I'm obviously on the older side of uh, everybody these days, I would say. So having a
Yeah.
younger guy in the band is cool for that.
Now, is he the youngest?
Yeah, I think he is. He's 25 or 26, I think.
What?
Yeah,
Are you fucking kidding
he's a
me?
youngin.
No
I'm
shit.
I turned 31 next month. I think Seth's 32 or 33, maybe
You're
32.
making it sound like you're like 50. No
No,
way.
but everybody's getting younger. You meet people at shows sometimes like, oh, I'm 24 or something. It's like, people are. It only makes sense. You get older. The older, a
Yeah.
lot of my older buddies that I used to go to shows with or see, they don't go to shows as much anymore. I don't really go to shows that much anymore either. But, like people they move, they have kids, they get married, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
obviously the people that come out to shows and get excited about music and all that stuff are just getting younger, which is cool. But it's like, I can't help but feel a little bit older sometimes.
Well, I would assume that
Yeah.
recruiting like younger guys too would be a smart idea because they, you know, if they're already dead set on like music as being their, you know,
Right.
their path right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they don't have the kids, the wife, and all that lined up, or maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah, it just depends. But it's nice. It's nice with this situation because again, we all I wanted everybody to sort of be in the area so we could potentially have band practices and do all the stuff you did when you first started a band. When like Power Trip first started, we were all kind of in the same area, and we would get together on Sundays and watch football and practice. And we don't really do that with Fugitive, but we can pull together band practice rather easily, uh, and do that type of stuff and hang out. And I like that, the camaraderie and that stuff you do when you first start a band. It's fun, and
Yeah,
like
the friendship, like
yeah, like
building that bond.
yeah, like with Power Trip, it's like we were touring and all that stuff, and uh, we didn't really, if we were going to practice, it was right before a tour because some people had to fly in and stuff like that. And, just it's past that point, which is, totally fine. But I've enjoyed that side of this band. It's just kind of like the early days type thing.
Yeah,
And
like getting back to
yeah,
the roots of being
yeah. Like
being,
if I want
a
to jam
band.
with Lincoln, if I got an idea or something, I can just hit him up, say, hey, you want to jam this week, or tomorrow? And we'll drive, and I'll drive to his creeping death practice space in Dallas, and we can just jam out some ideas. And if it sounds good, we could take the recording home and sit on it. And that's a cool thing to be able to do. With Power Trip, Chris lives in Philly, so we would try to get together here and there for a couple days at a time. I fly out there or whatever, and that's cool. But you just it's hard to rely on those little windows of time for creativity. Really
Yeah,
for yeah.
and to like top it off, like I mean, you got to play in the fact of like energy, like the creative flow, like all of that comes into play. I mean, you travel and then you get there and you're like, oh fuck, now I have to do something productive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I've had to, that's been something I've had to do quite a bit. And I mean, you can make it work sometimes, but really with creativity, and it's the same thing when I'm writing. It's like, I want to be, you'd love to be productive every day and get up and write something interesting and cool and exciting every day. You just can't do it, like you have to do it when it feels right. And yeah, so when you try to plan a trip to go jam somewhere for a couple days and just keeping your fingers crossed that everything's going to happen perfectly, it usually doesn't. So I like that he lives close because yeah, if I get an idea one week, I can say, hey, let's get in let's get in the jam space and I want to see how this sounds because I can, I demo everything out with, I have like a drum program and all that stuff, and it's cool to hear it that way, but you don't really know if it's right all the way
Oh
until you
yeah,
get in the
until you get
room.
in the room.
Yeah, it's like when you feel the energy and when you can, and create, it flows a lot better when you're in the room as opposed to when you're writing by yourself, at least for me, because you have that other person that you're kind of the energy is bouncing off of. So basically you can kind of feel what the next thing is a little bit more when you're playing it together, and when the drummer does
Yeah.
something, his instincts, or so that's really helpful to be able to do that. So that's a really good part about this situation.
Yeah, and I mean without a doubt, I mean like the the style of music that you play, like thrash, is more like it's a flow thing. Like I mean, like I have easy drummer myself, and
Yeah,
I mean you don't you don't really get it, like you said. I mean, until you get in the room, because like yeah,
yeah,
I mean I tend to write like more technical stuff at home, and then I like get and play with my friends. I'm like I don't know, like
yeah.
this doesn't
It needs to
this doesn't
vibe.
seem right.
It needs to vibe in a live setting, I feel like. Because I mean, there's different sides to the easy drummer thing. I mean, I it's been really great for me in a lot of ways. Just I've been able to write stuff that I probably wouldn't write in a room. Um, just things I tried out, I guess maybe that were less natural that ended up working out. But you can the cool thing about it is you can really hear, this other side of that. I guess I was going to say is, when you play something in a room, if it feels good, generally, that's the right thing. But sometimes,
Yeah.
I think especially with riffs, a riff can kind of sound cool in the room when everything's distorted and loud, and you're maybe recorded on your phone and it still sounds all right. But it's not till you record it for real, whether that's on Easy Drummer, GarageBand, or if it in the studio, where like you can actually hear what the riff is, and you can really sit on that and listen to that repeatedly and make sure that it's the right riff and stuff. So for me, I like being able to hear it really well before I actually go and record it. So that's the great thing about Easy Drummer, I would say.
Without a doubt. And I mean, like, I could relate to this thing that I found about you. The fact that like you it opened a lot of doors that you tried a different tuning with Fugitive. I mean, like for me, I was like in this rut of like, I liked drop A. It was like super low, it sounded good. But then like I started playing around and I was like, holy crap, like this tuning resonates with me more nowadays. I mean,
Which
I
one?
feel with are you talking about the tuning?
Or which one did you say resonates with you more nowadays?
Uh, well, drop G because like I play like really
Wow.
low death
I
metal.
didn't even know that drop G existed. I
well,
didn't even know that
well,
was a tuning.
yeah. I mean, like it's just super. Like
That's
if you think
insane.
of like autopsy,
That's beneath A is G.
yeah. Uh, but like
Holy
but like
shit.
thrash for an example. Uh, what tuning did you go from? Uh, you know, Power Trip to Fugitive. I don't even know the tuning.
Well,
What do
Power
you guys
Trip's
play?
in standard tuning.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
So
then
it's
what's
just I
Fugitive?
just dropped it down a step to D.
Oh,
So
okay.
Fugitive's in D. Yeah.
Awesome. So off of that, I mean, like, I love this. Like, how do you even distinguish what riffs need to go on a record? I mean, like, sometimes I'm not a professional musician in any way, but what I'm trying to say is like trying to piece together a song is super hard. I mean, like, what makes a riff stand out to you?
Um I don't know. It's tough. I try to think about that sometimes, and it's just sort of an instinctual thing. I think just writing for a long time and listening to music for a long time and being really into riffs and songs and stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Like for me, um, there's just like a certain vibe I'm trying to go for at all times. And I guess it's like it's kind of in all the riffs that I'm into, it's hard to explain. I think there's just like what you don't like from just
Yeah.
hearing all sorts of bands over the years, whether they're hardcore bands or thrash bands. I mean, there's just like a style that I'm going for, and I guess it's more of like a harder, more aggressive style. But I guess it's just sort of having the instinctual thing that I've built up over the years of like what I don't want it to sound like. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is, if you do this, it sounds lame or it sounds corny or it's not. I don't know. That would be the best way of describe it. But it's just years and years of doing that. But I mean, even early on, I feel like I had that filter pretty good. Like I'm most of the stuff I've written, even since we started the band, I'm like, I stand by it. Like there's songs there's songs
Yeah.
that like maybe I don't want to play as much or that I don't like the entire song quite as much. But generally, like the riffs I've written, there's only like a few maybe that I'm like, but the rest of them I feel pretty good about because I think I just had a good vision of what I wanted the song, like the riffs, to sound like from the jump. And I've grown over the years and developed and stuff like that. But I think it's just knowing what you don't want it to sound like and what to steer clear of, and you just have to have some type of vision. I'd say that's the hardest part when it comes to writing is having that vision. So like if you're writing a record, you have to sort of map out what the record's going to look like in your head, right? So
Mhm.
you have to have an idea. Okay, so is it going to be 8 songs or 10 songs? And there's going to be like 2 mid tempo songs and a couple fast songs. To keep having that helps a lot. And then from there, so if you're writing a record and you write a bunch of songs and you have to write one more song, it's like, well, what have we not done yet? It's like, okay, we don't have a song that's this tempo or this. And then
Oh, okay.
yeah, or like if you're
So you look at it more of like a tempo base or like
yeah,
a
I would say, because then you don't go into just repeating yourself too much on a record. Maybe I'll hear maybe I'll hear a song or I'll revisit a record or something that gets me really inspired, and there's like a certain type of song that I'm going for. Like maybe I feel like it's always like there's always like a band that helps me finish a record that I'm like trying to look for inspiration. It's like there's a couple bands that I can always sort of go back to that get me excited to write again. And I don't know what it is, something about the spirit of the band or the way they sound that, if I'm a little burnout on thrash or whatever I'm doing, that it can get me re-energized. There's a few bands that do that for me, and there's not that many, but
who is it?
there's a few. Like I feel like every record, especially with the Power Trip records, I was always inspired by them. I've always been inspired by them, but if I'm always like, what am I going to do last? They're always a good band to go to. It's definitely Sacrilege.
Okay.
I just love them. They're just one of those bands that, you can't really explain. It's hard to explain exactly what they do that's so captivating. I mean, if you just listen to them, you can kind of figure it out, but it's not like they're this wildly accessible metal band or anything like that. But there's just something in the way that the records sound, the way it's arranged, and the riffs, like the way the guitar player plays. He's kind of has this. It's aggressive, but it's sort of like this loose style, almost like dirty. I don't really. It's almost like Keith Richards playing thrash or something. It's like, but there's
Yeah.
something about that that's really interesting in the way that it's still really aggressive and heavy. It's hard to be loose and play like that and have it still sound good, So something about
Right.
the way like certain bands can capture a spirit like that, and that resonates with me, and I think with a lot of people, like just that, like this energy, this real thing going on. And there's just certain records that do that for me, like like Cro-Mag's Best Wishes.
Oh
That's
yeah.
probably the record that started Power Trip. Like when I first heard that, and just being super inspired by that to this day. That's one of those records I can put on, and the first song, it's just like, this is fucking what I want to do. Like this is
Yeah.
this is fucking aggressive, and you can feel this really hard. It just feels like real aggressive music, you know. I
Yeah.
don't know, like it doesn't feel contrived, you know. A lot of aggressive stuff to me has it can feel forced or like too aggro, but then there's
Yeah.
some records where just the arrangement and the attack and everything going on just it just has it. And so, you know, Chromag, Sacrilege, stuff like that I can always go back to. It gets me excited about playing thrash. I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my tape collection. What else is there?
There you go.
Obviously Discharge, Hear Nothing, you know, that record. Uh, Devastation, Idolatry, a Texas band. That's like some stuff that I always go back to. Celtic Frost, obviously. They're always in the mix. Um, you know, I kind of like going, obviously Slayer and Metallica and stuff, but I just, you know, there's some stuff where it's a little older and it's a little more primitive, and there's just something in the simplicity of the riffs or whatever
Yeah,
that
I
comes
was
through.
just about to say
Yeah,
that. Like, I mean, some of the most pissed off albums that I've ever heard
yeah,
comes down to simplicity and
hmm
the vocal style.
yeah.
I don't know, like, I mean,
Well,
to
vocals are really
me, like,
important.
yeah, vocals and simplicity. Those are the two things. Simplicity, but catchy, you know?
Yep.
Um, but, you know, I wanted to really dissect, like, your discography of, like, your riff writing and say, like, you know, what do you think's, like, pretty consistent about it? I mean, like, you obviously have, like, a flow and you have a way that you do things, but what do you think is, like, consistent?
Um, well, like I said, since the beginning, I've always approached it probably from and I don't say this like this is something really special or unique, but sometimes I guess it could be considered that in metal or in aggressive music. Sometimes, I mean, I take a pretty lean like pop approach to the way I write. It's not like this.
Oh, okay.
It's
You
not
said a
like
pop approach?
yeah. I mean, when I say that, it's like, whoa, what does that mean? No, like you know, just classic arrangements. You know, I don't. I try to keep it really simple. I mean, it's all about just making the song catchy and memorable. So like, I go you know verses and choruses and pre-choruses and bridges, and that's what I do. You know, I'm not really, I don't know if it's because I'm kind of, I'm not ADD, but I lose it, my attention wanes if the song kind of veers into random places, you know, like when
7-minute
yeah,
songs.
like just like riff stacking and stuff like that. I mean that's a style of metal, and it's a style like not everything has to follow the pop arrangement guidelines. Like I understand that, but my personal taste, I go for that. You know, I just want a song that I can follow and I can remember all the parts and I remember the order, and that the marriage between arrangement and the riffs and all that, the hooks is really, that's what I love about music. So
Yeah.
and I you know I'm into a lot of old music, pop, rock stuff. So I get inspired by stuff like that, even if it sounds nothing like the stuff I write. I mean, just kind of you know paying attention to arrangement and all that stuff is really interesting to me. So I guess to answer your question, the most consistent thing would be the way I arrange songs, I would say. So like you know from the very first stuff like that Power Trip demo until like this Fugitive thing,
Uh-huh.
all the Power Trip stuff, you know, I was always pushing to write songs that way, even if some people didn't necessarily see it from the
Right.
beginning. I mean, it was always like a really important thing for me is that we needed to have verses and choruses and um, you know focus on uh, trying to make the songs memorable, trying to create the hooks and stuff like that. Whether it was a hook on the guitar or a hook on the vocals, you know that's always been really important to me. So I would say that's probably the one consistent thing about what I've written. I mean, there's obviously the my style and my influences have remained pretty steady, but that's the one thing I would definitely say is stay the most consistent.
And I wanted to veer off a little bit into the Beatles because, like, I noticed that you're like a big fan of like George Harrison and the Beatles. Am I correct?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, all right, because all throughout high school, I was called like George Harrison because I had the haircut and everything. and,
Yeah.
and I mean, I want to pull back the last thing and say, what do you think? What do you think made the Beatles so successful? Like, what do you think was consistent with them? I mean,
Um, well, there's a lot of angles to that. I mean, they kicked off. I mean, it's as far as I can tell, what we know as pop and rock songwriting, right? Like they wrote the book on a lot of that. Um,
right?
I mean, if you just compare them to anything else around that time, I mean, they were just leagues beyond everybody. The songs were just amazing. I don't, what else can you say? I mean, obviously they could all write. That was really interesting. I guess Ringo more or less could write, but George, Paul, John, they were all amazing writers in their own right. They kind of brought something different to the table. They just, like I said, they wrote the book on so much that we know today is how to write songs and how music is. I mean, you can trace so much, pretty much everything in rock or even a lot about pop back to what they did, whether that's like the harmony or arrangement, anything like that. The way so many things they did. That's got to be a lot of it. I mean, they were kind of a boy band too, in a way, but
Hmm.
they kicked off like a revolution in terms of songwriting. So uh, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, their songs were just so memorable. And,
Right. And I mean, oh, you can't beat Let It Be.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, and then on top of that, the evolution of their sound and every record being so different in a really short period of time is amazing too. I mean, what they were able to do in like I think it was about 7 years, and they went through all these different eras and looks and sounds in like 7 years, and there's so much uh, they are owed so much credit for changing the course of music, and they had the biggest influence on it. I mean, you could kind of compare it to a obviously way different, but like kind of like a Nirvana thing. Nirvana came in and just
yeah.
completely changed everything. Music changed overnight. So many bands were able to happen because of Nirvana. um, and it's kind of the same thing, on a different scale, but I would compare it to that.
Yeah. I mean, the Beatles, I owe a lot to them because, I mean, just in general, like, I mean, like, when did they come into your life? I mean, I was probably like, I don't know, like 15 when I got like a CD of them. I was like, what is this? Like, this is so good. I mean, what was your first tape of them?
Well, my dad, he's 66. So he grew up listening to the Beatles. He raised me listening to the Beatles. So they've always been on um, since I can remember. I mean, I don't even really remember the first time I heard them because it's just been playing in the car or at the house for as long as I can remember. I mean, I have memories when I was younger of like certain songs. I'd say like I think when I was a kid, probably "I Am the Walrus" was always really interesting because it's kind of haunting and weird and uh, almost kind of scary in a way. Like towards
Yeah.
the end, like I think my dad would like to like scare me when I was a kid for fun because he would tell me about how I think it's "I Am the Walrus." Like if you play it backwards, apparently it says like Paul is
Yeah,
dead or
and
something, and then
that's a weird thing about music, like, from back in the day. Everyone's like, "Play it backwards, play Pink Floyd backwards." I'm like, "Okay, I will."
yeah, like I mean, I think there was like that urban myth about Paul was actually dead and the guy that was Paul was an impersonator or something and all that. I mean, obviously it's not true, but that was when I was a kid. It's like, oh, Paul is dead and all this shit. And then the song is so weird and the lyrics and everything. So that's probably one of the earlier ones I can remember hearing and just being interested in. But yeah, they've just kind of been a constant throughout my life, and they're one of those bands I think for most people, at least that are into them, you just kind of get more and more into them as you get older, and more things reveal themselves over the years, and even with the things that they release. as the years go by, like remixes of the albums that doesn't sound like it would be that interesting, but it's them, and it is, like when they remix an old album of the Beatles, like Giles Martin goes in and they're able to do these things to these albums that make you like reinvigorate your interest in them is really cool. And they're like the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, like the documentary that came out, like it's crazy that hadn't come out. Like all this footage of them making a fucking record, like
Right.
like how did they hold on to that until now? I don't know. It's crazy. So it's just cool that they're one of those bands that continue to inspire. And like like I said, you just keep discovering new things about the songs and the albums. And some people don't get them, but most people, I think, that understand music get what's happening with them.
Yeah, and when I think of the Beatles too, I think of like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, all those like killer guitar players back in the day. And like, I don't know, were you a big fan of like Jimi Hendrix at the time? Because I know he was like, I don't know, for me, he was just doing really weird things on the guitar, and I was like, what is going on? I gotta figure it out.
Yeah, he was one of my first guitar inspirations. Like people ask me that all the time, like what was your first guitar thing, or who was inspiring to you? And yeah, it was definitely Jimi Hendrix. I mean, my dad loves Jimi Hendrix. When I was first saying I wanted to play guitar, when I asked for a guitar, for my birthday or whatever, it was always like, oh yeah, if you're Jimi Hendrix, and he would play like Voodoo Child, Slight Return or something. I was like, holy shit, yeah, that's just fucking awesome. And you watch him play guitar, and he's like humping his guitar and against the amp and like setting it on fire, and he's doing shit to the guitar that like no one even does now still, so like he looked fucking cool. He's like it was super inspiring. Guys like him and Pete Townsend, Eric Clapton too. My dad was an Eric Clapton fan, so yeah, all those guys.
It sounds like basically your father was like your upbringing to music, because I mean I was the same way. My dad was like, don't listen to metal, man.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's weird because he was, in a way, like a lot of stuff he showed me I like a lot now, but things that I play and like all the aggressive stuff I kind of got into independently, probably, but all the classic stuff that I'm still into, I definitely ended up coming back around on and still being into. I mean, there was a few years probably when I was in my early teens where I think everybody goes through that phase where they just want to find their own shit and be into stuff that's current, So in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I was like, fuck, I don't want to listen to the old shit. I just want to find new cool shit to get me inspired. So that was when I got into metal and hardcore and all that. And then once I got into that, it was like kind of figured out what I was into. Then I sort of came back to all the classic stuff that I've always liked, and that's continues to be what I'm really into. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, so another thing is, I was basically just diving deep into you. I mean, you're very like, I realize this about you. You're not very, I don't know, like interviews. I mean, you weren't really, I don't know, into them, or like you didn't do a lot of them with Power Trip. Am I correct with that or no?
No, I didn't. For like a really long time, and really up until Riley passed away, like he was really into doing all the interviews. I liked having a low profile. I was actually pretty low key most of the until then. All I really have been into when it comes to being in a band for the most part has really been writing and performing. I don't really like, that's what matters to me is writing good music and playing good shows and stuff like that. I love the people I meet along the way, obviously, and the community element of it, but I guess just like the social visibility, all that, I wasn't really interested in. Still not really, but I guess when it came to all that, he also insisted on doing a lot of that stuff. Okay, fine. I don't care. I don't need to talk about writing riffs and stuff like that. I mean, if someone comes to me and really want to talk about that, sure, but I didn't need to compete to do any of that stuff. But obviously when he passed away, a lot of things changed. I realized that it's important with him not being around to have more of us be a little more available and to people and people that are fans of the band. I feel like it's important to be available to those people. These are the people that make it possible for me to make a living or play music or do anything. I'm really appreciative of that. So when he passed away, I think a lot of people reached out to me and found me that maybe because I kept a pretty low profile and it said a lot of really cool things. And I was just like, you know what, it's time for me to be a little more visible and available to those people. And then, even just putting out new music of any kind, if you allow yourself to connect with a lot of people, it's only good for what you do, because people can be able to pay attention to the things you're doing. And if you put out new music, you have a whole audience that's following you and can support you in whatever you do. So these days I'm obviously with the Fugitive stuff, I'm more out there. And again, I mean, I'm not super into the spotlight or anything like that. It's not something that I generally go for, but I understand that this is a part of whatever you want to call it, your career, and it's important to do to allow yourself to be someone that people can connect with and understand and follow. So like I'm really, I feel like it's a privilege to have any kind of people that are interested in something I'm doing. So I'm down to be there for him. So
Hell yeah. I respect that.
It's cool. Yeah. I've been enjoying connecting with people and all that. It's very flattering that people are interested in anything I do. So
no, that's awesome. I mean, like, I remember like the very beginnings of this podcast, like years ago, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to hit up Power Trip, but like nothing happened of it. And like recently I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna hit Blake up. So, but I wanted to bring up this powerful quote that I found from your, I don't know, past. It basically said that at any moment things can change very quickly, and change permanently. So you have to appreciate these specific moments. I love that. And I wanted to open this up to you. I mean, do you recall any like memorable quotes that you've heard on the road? Maybe from Riley. I mean, that just kind of keeps you like motivated to do what you do.
Quotes. Memorable quotes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't really tell you. Memorable quotes from him. I mean, he said a lot of funny shit, but I don't know. Inspirational quotes. I don't really know.
That's okay. We can skip
drawing
that
a blank
one.
on that one, but obviously lots of
memories,
of memories and stuff like that, of course.
So the last topic is basically like being an outdoorsy person. I mean, I noticed like on social media there's like a lot of photos of you. It looked like the Grand Canyon or something. I have no idea. I have no idea. But anyway, I wanted to ask, like, is that something that was a part of your life before or after being a band? Like, I mean,
just being outside
ju-
shit.
yeah, just
Oh yeah.
besides being a musician, I mean, are you a pretty active
Yeah.
person?
Yeah. I'm definitely an active person. I exercise a lot. I like to stay moving. I'm not really a person that likes to sit around. So if I'm sitting at home, it's usually if I'm writing or whatever. But I like to bike and exercise, run, do yoga, all that stuff. So I'm usually outside,
Oh, no shit, you do yoga.
Yeah, I like doing stuff outside if the weather permits. Sometimes it's really hot here, but when it's nice outside, I'm always trying to do stuff outside. Just be active, because I think when you do, when you're when you're a musician, tour musician or whatever, if this is what you do, and you don't have a job and all that, I mean, you have to really figure out how to structure your life in a way that works for you. It's not easy for everybody. It's not easy for me either. Sometimes, I mean, there's moments, but generally, if you can harness that flexibility and that freedom that you've allowed yourself to have, it can be amazing. It can be really positive. But I think you have to put yourself in those situations to create a positive environment to live in. You know what I mean? If you just, party, sit around and smoke weed and like watch TV all day, you can kind of go
It's gonna
downhill.
catch up
You
with
can
you.
go downhill pretty quickly doing that. Yeah, that's not the way to do it. Obviously you have to do what works best for you, but for me, I've always been kind of active, and but even since I've had the ability to do whatever I want, I have to structure things to allow for a healthy lifestyle. That's just the way that I function best. So I think
Yeah,
that's really
I mean,
important.
and I wanted to like branch off of that and be like, if you had like a day off, like what would you, a day off with all your friends or by yourself, what would you do? I
Like on
mean, like,
tour,
yeah, yeah.
um, a day off on tour. Well, yeah, I'd say even if it's a regular day of tour, generally I would get up in the morning and go get some breakfast and coffee and stuff, and then I'd probably try to go look for a record store. Um, One of my favorite things about touring was getting to explore the city I'm in. So, like maybe I'd find a gym or something on a certain day if I felt like it. But generally, I like just walking around town and listening to music and exploring, going to record stores or whatever, and just seeing the place I'm in. That's one of my favorite things to do. One of the things I miss the most about touring, for sure, is that just because it's always exciting to be in a new place, and I like walking around town and just uh, seeing the sights. I'm into that big time. So that's probably my optimal day off on tour, is doing something like that. Something, I guess you could say, kind of touristy, but I just like walking around town.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I was debating if I want to bring this up or not, but I mean, you've probably been asked this 25 billion times, but
Mm.
I mean, the whole like power trip thing, I know that you guys are like working on a record, but it's like touring and all that kind of stuff, even like in the plans, like, I mean, I know that you said there's like a record in the works, but I mean, it sounds like um there is momentum, but I'm not exactly sure. And I don't want to dive deep if you don't want
No, I
to.
mean, we're kind of just taking everything as it happens. It's like a process. I mean, um, we all want to play again. There's a lot of people that never got to see us. A lot of younger fans. Seems like there's a bit of a void there. So obviously, we all want to play shows again. We want to do stuff, but we want to do the right thing. We want to, maintain our integrity and do something that's up to our standards and up to everybody else's standards. And I know that if it reaches our standards, that it's going to reach everybody else's. I'm confident about that because that's how it's always been. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think the important thing is just being patient and making sure everything goes the right way. And these things just take a lot of time. Like making a record, finishing a record. Uh, Especially when everybody's a little bit scattered, it just takes time. So we've made a lot of progress. Things are going well. It's just I don't really know when everything's gonna happen. It's sort of like a open book at this point. Whenever everything comes together is when it'll happen. And yeah, I mean, I would love to tour again and do all that stuff again one day. I think it will, but you don't know until you know. So it's like for now we're just working steadily and doing our other projects and trying to enjoy life and stuff. And whenever it happens, it'll happen. So
Oh yeah.
that's all I can really
And I
say on
know
that
that.
note. But yeah,
No, I mean,
I don't mind.
like
I
I
don't
said,
mind talking about that though.
yeah, I was like hesitant about that, but
That's fine.
fugitive in general, dude, like that. Let's put it this way, man. Everything about that project, it is like, if there was a tour with Fugitive, I think it would go great because I mean the music is fucking awesome. You've already like the band itself. I mean, you would just hop on a Creeping Death bill. It would just work. You know what I mean? Like that'd be sick.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, Fugitive. I don't know what's gonna happen with that because like it wasn't. I didn't start it to do another full time band or anything. I just kind of did it for fun. So we're gonna just play shows and when we want. When it makes sense. Nothing. I don't really see us doing any hard touring in the sense of like hopping in the van. That's not really something that we want to do with this band. We'll play shows, we'll continue to put out records, and as time passes, you never know what opportunities arise. Like maybe a cool tour arise where, they can bring us onto in a good situation where we can, we're not like scraping by. That'd be cool. It's just, that's you're taking another step with a band when you go that route, which is cool. But we're all in our own bands and stuff, so we don't really need to do that super soon. I mean, we don't even have that many songs, so I think the next step is probably writing another EP. I want to do I'd like to do a couple more new songs by the end of the year. Would be cool. At least get in the studio. So I already have some ideas, and just keep putting stuff out. It's just fun, And now with the internet nowadays, it's so easy to get music out to people and to create momentum and get people into a band, without having to hit the road.
Yeah, without even touring.
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously touring is when you can take it to another level, but I'm excited with the feedback it got so far, and I feel like a lot of that obviously has to do with the music. I think if you really put everything into the music and try to make something that will resonate with a lot of people, then it can go really far even without touring. So the fact that it's gotten as far as it has just playing a couple shows is pretty amazing. So I think with that band, just do that, and then just keep working on everything else. Just try to keep things rolling steady, and everything's kind of moving in the right direction though. So it feels good.